And typically I can.
And welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. As always, tonight we've got John Gapso. He's on the big board, and I'm your host, Pat Ford. There's a few purposes for these shows. We want to give the Libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down-ballot candidates. For all of those who fear we have no bench, we have no reserve, I will tell you the future is now. Over the past year and few months, we've interviewed dozens and dozens of great candidates running at every single level of elective office, from town auditors to folks who would serve the community in a board that runs a metropolitan transit district, town council, to state representative, state senate, in tonight's case, the United States Senate. We have with us folks who are able to deliver the message. A combination of the statement of principles, our platform, mixed in with a real world gravitas that explains to folks out in the communities, literally around the nation, what it means to have a libertarian steward, not govern, but steward the resources of your community. And we've had successes. Again, around the nation, libertarians are serving in dozens of different capacities. We've had hundreds of folks elected in the last couple of years as libertarians. Electing libertarians to office is, in fact, the purpose of the Libertarian Party. What do I mean by that? A political party exists to deliver candidates, to get them elected, so that these folks can be, well, if you will, the advance team for freedom in our time. And what does that mean? Simply putting libertarians in positions of responsibility so that we can display in working terms, not in the academic, not in the philosophical, but in real working terms, what it means to have small government, personal freedom, self-ownership in your community. So we often say many folks are running for office will be the first libertarians that people all around the country will ever meet. So with success comes great responsibility. This show challenges those libertarian down-ballot candidates to be able to deliver a libertarian message through what we call here lunch pail issues. Economic development in their community, school systems, healthcare, the nuts and bolts of everyday life. In many respects, the more localized, or I call it the hyper-local nature of the individual office, the more import it has, the more effect it has on individual folks' daily lives. And that's why it is so important to get people elected. We've had folks over the last few months talk about something called the Moulton Maneuver, named after Chuck Moulton, who envisioned across the country libertarians being in boards, being in organizations, being in representative town meetings, being in council meetings, serving as auditors, serving on water boards, to bring back to Americans that culture of self-ownership, real independence, and to exhibit in real world terms the fact that we are no longer beholden to a government. We no longer need to be held hostage by those who would hijack that government and use it for their own personal issues of control. Finally, the most important part, and appreciate you sticking with me on this. It's been a few weeks since we've really been on the air over the 4th of July holiday. It's important to understand that you may be in an affiliate in Maine or Rhode Island, Vermont, Florida. The candidates engaging in that sort of day-to-day battle, if you will, for the hearts and minds and souls of the American voting public, that those candidates in Wyoming or Wisconsin have that same type of day-to-day import. That like a wildfire, freedom will, to use the cliche, reignite itself in this country. We just passed the 4th of July holiday. A testament to the type of battles that Americans waged. A small percentage of Americans, by the way, waged to introduce a new form of liberty, an experiment, if you will, in governance that has, to this day, with all its challenges, with all its warts, with all its issues, been one of the great democratic experiments in governance in this planet's history. And candidates like tonight, Steve Scheetz, he's running for the United States Senate from the great state of Pennsylvania, I should say the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is here to give testimony. Now, one of the adventures of doing this show, by the way, is that the busiest people you're going to meet are candidates. And so we go into the show every week with the notion that we set up a schedule. There are times when candidates have the opportunity to be where candidates need to be, which is in front of the voting public, or perhaps at a board meeting, engage in a fundraiser, the bread and butter of politics, all of that. They may be on the road. So whereas when we have conversations on the air with her, friends who are more philosophically based, we could do it in a controlled environment. When your guest is at some point during the show driving at an excessively high rate on perhaps the Pennsylvania Turnpike, while simultaneously setting up his engagement via the World Wide Web, adventures can happen. So we apologize for the delay in tonight's show. But Steve Scheetz, welcome to Candidates Corner.
Thank you for having me, Pat. It has been an adventure. Being on the road is it's not easy. Typically, when I do these things, I like to do them at my workstation where, like you said, controlled environment.
Right.
We didn't have that tonight.
No.
So I do apologize for things getting off on the wrong foot, but here we are.
No, there we are. The important thing is we're all together as a family, our Liberty fam, as it were. So let's talk about the election. Let's talk about the candidacy. Let's get to the bare bones. First off, and this will be the only time we mention that individual's name tonight. Who are you actually running against so far?
Well, currently I'm running against our lieutenant governor. I'm not going to mention his name because, why give him any. But basically, he's kind of a known quantity. He seems like a decent guy when you talk to him, but he's also off the rails with left-wing politics when it comes to what he wants, where he wants things to go. And basically, as libertarians, we believe that people need to be in control of their own lives, provided they respect the rights and property of others. And when you talk to left-leaning Democrats, a lot of them will agree, but then they have these. There seems to be a disconnect with the politicians that they nominate, because the politicians they nominate want something that is completely foreign to what most of the people in Pennsylvania actually want, if that makes any sense at all. I don't think it does. I really don't. But that's kind of why I found myself both scratching my head and saying, I really want to run for this office, because I really want to draw attention to this sort of thing. And I want to share with people that there are options, there are choices, and we can do things and focus on actual solutions rather than just paying lip service to problems.
Right. Is there an incumbent that you're running against, or what's the general framework of the race?
So Pat Toomey is stepping down. He's not running again. So it's essentially going to be an open seat.
Wow.
And we're expecting lots of competition, lots of people crawling out of the woodworks for this one for all around the Commonwealth. And there are many people out there who are trying to say that, we need a Republican this round. There are many people out there saying we need a Democrat this round. And well, I'm saying we need a Libertarian this round.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Part of running for office, at this level is not just to promote myself, promote what I want to work on as a candidate, but one of the biggest things that we need to be doing as candidates, especially at this particular level, is help the down ballot. You started talking about this earlier. We have a lot of people who are going to be running for state senate, state representative, and other down ballot candidates, and all of them need our support. All of them need us to work. When I go driving around the state at high rates of speed, it's basically to support our candidates. One particular time I drove out to Pittsburgh to pick up the paperwork for the candidates of the 59th and the 60th in a special election. And, when you get into a certain position where you have a week to get this paperwork taken care of, making sure that it's absolutely positively flawless, and get it to the Department of Elections before they say you're not able to run anymore. You do everything you can. You can't rely on the Postal Service. You can't rely on FedEx. You have to go out and take care of it yourself. Make sure that the people who are out there are talking to our attorneys, making sure the paperwork is absolutely right. A lot of what we run into is, we have some institutional knowledge, but that institutional knowledge is not spread out to everybody. There's only a few people who have it and only a few people who understand it. And part of what happens when you have these people, you're hoping that you can get them in the right place at the right time. And one of the beautiful people who is in central Pennsylvania, Dr. Bill Sloan, and of course our chair, Jennifer Moore, they were both instrumental in making sure that our candidates had their paperwork right. Because, without that, they wouldn't have been on the ballot. And without that, we wouldn't have been able to share what our libertarian principles are to the people. That's what we're trying to do. And as one of the people watching right now is Tim McMaster. He was a candidate for Senate in the 48th. I almost screwed that up, Tim. Sorry. But he's in the 48th, and a lot of that was Lebanon County and part of York, the part where he lives. And, a part of that, and I'm getting off on a tangent here, but a part of that is you're meeting new people. You're going around, you're meeting new people in the party, and you're trying to get their support. So in Pennsylvania, we had a huge amount of growth. We have a large number of new libertarians, and they're all over the state. So as I'm driving around the state, I'm also meeting new libertarians. We went from 186 members to over 1,200 as current. And, it was a lot of work and a lot of effort put in by a lot of people. But my God, we have some amazing people in our group now, and a lot of them are working and participating in committees and growing their county affiliates and just making things happen. Now, you talked before also about the Moulton maneuver. In this particular odd year, when we're focusing on municipal elections, we have the ability to elect libertarians to office. And some people say that that's a waste of time. We should be focusing on other things, more educational things. But, like you said also, the Libertarian Party is a political party, and the whole focus of a political party is to elect people to office. But more importantly, when we elect people to these municipal offices, like auditor, like town council, this is the farm team. These are the people who are actually seen running their localities, their municipalities as libertarians. And as they get that experience, as they get that notoriety of, being somebody who's done things, being somebody who's actually focused on solutions. When it comes time for a bigger office like state rep, like state senate, these are the people who actually have the experience and name recognition with the actual voters.
Right.
They can actually compete with the big parties on a legitimate level. And that's what this is about. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make things happen. And it's not to say that we shouldn't be focusing on education. That we absolutely should. We are. I've talked to people in many places. I might even mentioned it on Candidates Corner once before, but I started off life as kind of a rabble rouser. I was one of those people who like to go out and protest and wave signs around and come up with clever chants and whatnot. But what I discovered over the course of years is that, look, I might reach 5 people while I'm doing that. 4 of those 5 people are pissed off that I slowed them down for half a second. And the fifth one, fifth one forgot everything that I had to say literally 20 steps away from me. But as a candidate for office, when I was out petitioning for Congress, I got to meet a large number of people, and those people, when they saw me a second time, addressed me by name. I might not have remembered who they were, but they knew who I was because they stopped and listened to what I had to say. And even if I didn't get their signature, they still remembered who I was and what I had to say. Being a candidate is actual legitimate power to push that message.
Right.
People remember who you are. People remember what you had to say because they see you as putting skin in the game. You're actually working to try and make a difference in the system that we have, as opposed to saying, screw the system. I want people to do what I want because I'm telling them I want them to do it. That doesn't work with libertarians. That doesn't work with regular people either. If we're gonna persuade people to our way of thinking, we have to show them, not just talk to them, but we need to show them what we can do, what we're about. So that's what my campaign is going to be about. Not just talking, but helping our down ballot candidates show these people what we're about.
As a candidate, you're given media attention. As a candidate, people are investing you in terms of campaign donations. And then, as we so often mention, then they have a more than emotional attachment with you. They feel that they're a partner with you in their campaign. As a candidate, you can specifically address every single issue with a libertarian approach that your constituency is concerned about. In a manner really unlike any other opportunity. The Libertarian Party is in that gray zone, if you will, between being one of the big national parties and still being a grassroots effort. We have to seize every opportunity we have to deliver not just a message of what we will do, but quite frankly, a message of what we've done. We've successfully elected libertarians to a number of levels in the American political scene. One of the biggest knocks against us, I don't know if I go negative, but let's be blunt. One of the biggest knocks against us for many, many years was that there was no proof, there was no evidence, there was no experience of actually using a libertarian philosophy and approach in working American government. And now we can say to that, balderdash, because of the efforts of people like Kara Schultz and so many other folks. We've got mayors, and we've got council people, and we've got city clerks, and so that we're in the process of putting that to bed. Libertarians elected, and all of a sudden folks realize that, they're actually more libertarian than they thought. So it's proof of concept, a fundamental in American business, a fundamental in marketing. Proof of concept while simultaneously beginning to accomplish the goals that libertarians set out, 50 years ago. This being our 50th anniversary. And the excitement that's generated by candidates who are libertarian, unabashedly, unapologetically libertarian, is stunning to watch, isn't it?
It's really wonderful. Another aspect of the Moulton Maneuver is that we're reaching out and we're recruiting libertarian candidates. A lot of these candidates weren't really active with the party. They were just registered libertarian, and they got a letter from us saying that they could run for office and win as a libertarian, and all they need to do is go out and get the signatures to get on the ballot. So, these people will call in and start talking to us, and we start talking to them, and our reach is pretty amazing when our message is so incredibly awesome. These people who are just, I want to be left alone libertarian. They get this letter, and all of a sudden they say, hey, I work for a living. I do a lot of stuff around my community. Maybe I'll try my hand at running for office. Let me find out what that's all about. So then they'll contact us. We help them figure out what that's all about. They run for office, and the next thing you know, they're on town council, and they're applying their ideals, their libertarian principles to what it is that they're doing. That's pretty badass. Someone was talking about, how little influence happens at the local level, and I'm thinking to myself, that's where everything happens. Another really sad statistic for libertarians is that there's more Republicans and Democrats serving in municipal office than there are libertarians in the state. And I don't want to say that it's sobering, because even though we're the third largest party, we have a long way to go before we catch number 2. But in doing this and showing people that we can actually work, we can actually make things happen, we can actually create solutions, we're growing the party. And we started growing the party in 2019. And like I said, we went from a very small number to I forget exactly the thousands of percent increase, but it's a rather huge increase. And those members are all interested in making things happen. We have a decent number of people who are registered libertarian across the Commonwealth. And again, third largest does not necessarily mean that we're getting close to number 2.
Right.
But the more people see us doing things, the more people are going to be registering libertarians, because they're not going to see us as a waste of time anymore. They're going to see us as, a third option, a legitimate third option, particularly at the local level. Every time they hear about a libertarian running for office, they start thinking about all the things that the libertarians are doing and say, oh, that person believes what I believe. I think I should elect that person to my town council. That's what we're about. And Tim is right. We really are the second party, because there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. He's right. But it's an uphill battle, and it's one that is meant to be fought. You can't just give up because the odds seem insurmountable. If you're not fighting it, then you're basically saying that you're cool with the way things are. And if you're cool with the way things are, that's great, but I'm not. So I am that over my dead body libertarian.
Folks,
how many people remember Mark Allen Feldman's speech in 2016? But he kind of forgot that one.
Right. We no, it's might be time to play that tonight, John. Maybe as a closing. We're talking to station management right now. Folks, if you're just joining us, you're listening to LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. Joining us on the line via the miracle of the internet, We don't have video tonight because some on the road technical issues. That's what happens when you try to connect with a working on the road 7 by 24 politician like Steve Scheetz. Steve's running for the United States Senate. It's a critical race for the state of Pennsylvania. Steve, let's talk about the campaign a little bit. First of all, how does ballot access work in Pennsylvania, and what impact do individual races have upon that?
Okay, so in 2022, when we start going for ballot access, we can stack candidates. So you can have, in some cases, 5 or 6 candidates on a single petition form. So every signature counts for everybody else as long as they're in their respective district. As a statewide candidate, if I'm on somebody's sheet, that signature will count for me, which is something I'm really excited about. Of course, I do need a lot of signatures. We need about 10,000 raw because it's a 5,000 like valid must have. And anybody who's ever collected signatures knows that there's many ways to discredit signatures, many ways to disqualify signatures. And it's not an easy thing to do, going out, collecting signatures, petitioning, getting on the ballot. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that you absolutely positively have to do. And, part of the things that makes it easy for a statewide candidate is when, like me, when I'm going around and I'm helping the down ballot candidates. Every time I go out and I help them with a campaign event or help them with petitioning, I'm also helping myself. So, I will be driving around the state. I will be going to Erie, Pennsylvania. I will be spending a lot of time in Pittsburgh. I will be spending a lot of time in Philadelphia. Some time in York County as well. Tim says he's going to help me get signatures. I'm going to help him too.
If I can make a suggestion, there's a little event which we'll talk about at the end of the hour happening in Williamsport. That might be a great weekend for a whole lot of us to just hit the road, if you will, and take on the greater Williamsport metropolitan area and make sure everybody signs. That could be, as my kids would say, a hell of a good time, right?
It's going to be a hell of a good time. We won't be able to collect signatures there because yeah, I know. We actually can't start petitioning until actually pretty much until our convention in March.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. This it's just the way we can start a little bit before then, but until we get the nomination, we can't really actually start any earlier than our convention, at least for me. Now, local candidates can start earlier.
So you've got to get 10,000 raw on the assumption that you need 5,000 good. What time period do you have to do that with?
It'll be from March until like August the 1st or 2nd.
Okay.
Whatever that last day that they decide. It's generally a Monday.
Mm-hmm. Hard work, but doable. Absolutely.
We did, I know you had Jennifer on. I don't know if she told you, because I can't really remember if she did or not, what went on those last 3.5 weeks of the drive in 2020, but it was pretty intense. We started that last section of the drive with a little over 1,000 raw signatures, and on the day of final turn-in, most of us were about ready to pass out because we were up till 2 a.m, and I had to get up and drive out to Harrisburg at 5. I picked up petition forms from our executive director, Kevin. He was up till 4:30, scanning, numbering, everything you can for these signatures and just to get them turned in. I picked up his stack. I had my stack. I went over, and if I could have had my backpack handcuffed to my arm, I would have.
Right.
But went out there, and Joe Jorgensen was there to talk about it, and we had a nice little conference there. That was pretty cool right before final turn-in. But as I was standing there and I was talking about it, people were congratulating me, and all I could do was cry. I could not believe that it was finally over and we were good to go. all I did at that microphone was just thank every single person who was out there petitioning with us. From the paid petitioners to the volunteers, the people who got one signature, people like Liz Terwilliger who got 900 by herself. It is a in a pandemic. It is a monumental undertaking what happened in Pennsylvania in 2020, and we did demonstrate that it can be done. We did demonstrate that we are capable of making it happen, and that's what we're going to do. In 2022, that's what we're going to do. So I fully anticipate, and I'm very excited to say that we're going to have a large number of full slates in counties around our Commonwealth, and I want to help each and every one of those candidates get on the ballot. I want to help each and every one of those candidates with their campaign, because that's what it's all about, helping each other and making things happen.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the race itself. Issues. It's interesting because more often than not, we're speaking to folks at the state or local level. And one of the things, obviously, that we try to get them to focus on are state and highly localized issues. And the reason being is, as libertarians, there's a tendency for a lot of us to talk on a philosophical level on the big issues of the day. In this case, however, you're running for the United States Senate, and it's all about the big issues of the day. When I do my work during the week, I often talk about something called outrage porn. And outrage porn is when, let's just say members of the media, print, broadcast, internet-based, will wave sort of that red flag in front of the bull, that emotional issue that draws the outcries, the obsessions. I think back during the period of the Obama regime, and there was much hue and cry from the Republicans about, a Marine officer who was holding a umbrella over the president's head, and people went nuts about that. As libertarians, we're not about that nonsense. We're not about the emotional. We're about the big issues. On a federal level, what issues are Pennsylvanians most obsessed with, both COVID and non-COVID related?
I mean, the issues on a federal level don't change a whole lot. We're still, domestically, we're still dealing with healthcare issues. We're still dealing with education. We're still dealing with taxation. We're still dealing with overbearing government regulation, and a lot of the people in Pennsylvania, they just want to go to work and make a living and have the government out of their way. So that's primarily the focus, is just trying to get the government out of people's way. Foreign policy wise, what they did in Afghanistan was just amazing. Apparently they just walked away and left everything where it was, weapons, ammunition, aircraft, lots of different things. So, God knows what's going on over there with that. But, when you hear different foreign leaders saying, like Hamid Karzai, who's talking about how if we had included the Taliban in some of the talks, maybe this war would have been finished a lot sooner. Maybe if we had done it this way, things would have worked out differently. A lot of the things that our country tends to do is it tends to stick its nose in places it doesn't belong, but it does so in a way that's just really, it discounts everything that is real on the ground and just installs a new reality. This situation isn't working, but instead of incorporating the people who could possibly make it work, we're going to come in and impose our own solution and try and stick this square peg in a round hole and make it work regardless. Needless to say, 2 decades later, it hasn't really been working out so well for us. Mm-hmm. So part of that is drawing it as a senator, drawing attention, doing what we can to support the people who are coming back wounded, but just trying to stop us from going over these places in the first place. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, building coalitions and working with politicians from other parties and trying to make things happen. We can do this. We can convince each other these things, and it just takes time, it takes effort, and it also takes trust. I don't necessarily believe that everybody in DC is necessarily evil, but there's been a lot of questionable decisions that are coming out of DC. So, and you go down there as a senator, we're going to be showing them what it is to talk about things from a place of principle. And a lot of times people say, well, you have to compromise on this, you have to compromise on that, and sometimes that means compromising your principles. I say no, it doesn't. We don't necessarily have to compromise on principles to get the message out. Right. If they want to pack bills with things that I'm going to say no to, I'm going to say no to it, and I'm going to explain why very publicly.
Right now, Congressman Barbara Lee has authored legislation in the House of Representatives, and there's a companion bill in the Senate. The House passed. I believe the Senate is still outstanding, which would repeal the authorization for use of military force. There's a couple of them out there. The one that they're attacking right now is the one that in 2002, which authorized the use of force in Iraq. Do you support that approach, obviously? And what about the war powers that allegedly reside in Congress? Where do they stand right now? What do we have to do to get back to a co-equal branches of government where Congress has the right to declare war, not a resolution ongoing that a president bastardizes?
Yeah, that's god awful that happens. Congress is the one place where a declaration of war is appropriately made. That's if you're going to walk down that road. What's been going on in the United States is just, and like you said, they bastardize something that the executive should never have had that kind of power in the first place. The fact that they let them do it and abdicated their duty to declare war or not is just saying that they're thinking wrongly about the way things are supposed to be. They didn't want to take responsibility for it, and this is where we wind up.
In a Steve Scheetz senatorship, do you see yourself as in the sense of, for example, war powers as something as a strict constitutionalist, or do you seek to really just reduce the power of the co-equal branches altogether?
All right, so we can only do so much, when we first start acting on this. So we're going to right now, if you look at where we are, we're in a train traveling 60,000 miles an hour, and we're heading towards a cliff. Before we can reverse course, we need to slow it down first. We need to stop, and then we can start reversing course. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get to, but I can promise you this, that whatever bill comes towards me, if it goes against the principles of libertarianism, the principles of people being free to live their lives, it's going to be a hard no for me. If it's going to be something that reduces taxes with the idea that we can reduce taxes further moving forward, I'll say that's a definite maybe. If it's something that moves the tax from over here to over here without changing it, it's going to be a no. It's got to be a systematic reduction of what we're doing of government power. It's got to be a systematic reduction of theft by the government. And we can only do what we can do, but we do need to start doing something.
Right. Speaking of theft by the government, it appears that the United States, after really a generation, has got a little bit of an inflation problem on its hand. And listen, I'm old enough. I may be the only one of the few folks in this show right now who remembers something called Whip Inflation Now, WIN, which was a program of, incredibly enough, price controls by both the Nixon and, most importantly, by the Ford administration. Not this Ford. I even knew better when I was 12 years old not to do price controls. Now you've got out of control fiscal policy and monetary policy. You've got out of control, spending. And now you've got a president who is issuing executive orders now about what businesses need to be and need to do in order to have efficiencies and be made and to fight effectively, without saying so, inflation. This seems to be a bipartisan problem. Is it fair to say that the wholesale printing of money over both the Trump administration and now the Biden administration may have a little bit to do with the beginnings of what could become a serious inflationary cycle? just a little bit.
Yes, I would say beyond a little bit. When you wholesale print money, you essentially devalue it. As it is right now, the value of the U.S. dollar is basically being propped up by the promise that we can pay back the debt somehow. And it's getting to a place where it is absolutely positively absurd. At some point, people are going to lose faith in where we are. The only reason why they haven't yet is because there's kind of a symbiotic relationship. China would be absolutely destroyed financially if they broke away from the dollar, or at least it appears that way. And so will so many other people, which is, again, the primary reason why the dollar is still the most traded currency in the world. I think the more that people start using competitive cryptocurrency, for example, and other currencies, you're going to start seeing the power of the dollar wane. And when the power of the dollar wanes, I think the crash is going to happen much faster than slower.
Right. It's CNBC of all people. I mean, you talk about a network that makes, if you will, federal news channels look like the Playboy Channel. Somehow, in a moment of perhaps the most supreme unawareness, if that's a word, one could have, talked about the upside to inflation was rising wages.
Well, okay, so you're getting $1.50 more an hour. You're spending $2 more on an ear of corn. $1.50 more on a loaf of bread. But you're getting $1.50 more an hour. It's just the price of goods is going up, outpacing the amount of money people are getting with their wages. So
right.
Yeah, that's a ludicrous argument to make.
Right. Could a function of a Steve Scheetz campaign for the United Senate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania be perhaps to educate at some level the American consumer that inflation, yes, is a problem, and B, the stock market increases are not due to the beneficence of a particular president, but have more to do with pumping and dumping trillions of dollars into the American economy, effectively inflating the stock market. Is that and that's really, when you look at those issues, that's the nuts and bolts of being a libertarian, right? Is that to understand the real relationships between the markets and individual behavior, the markets and governmental behavior, and to step away from the emotion and the blinders that are put on by, as Jerry Seinfeld once said, rooting for laundry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Damon plays for the Red Sox. We hate him. Plays for the Yankees. Oh, that's right. You're in Pennsylvania.
I am.
You hate him either way. But anyway, yeah. How much do you feel like and given, and again, we're getting back to the central conversation here, I guess, tonight as it's emerged, is the power of a candidacy on a large scale to speak directly to the public about issues that matter in a way that not only resonates with them, but is accessible to them so they understand it. Is that the type of argument that you'd like to make to the great folks of Pittsburgh and Philly and everywhere in between?
It's a great argument to make. Look, when we talk about monetary policy as it relates to the stock market being where it is today, part of that, when you think about how high it is, it's not so much a function of the value created in the stock market so much as the devaluing of the dollar. And when I think about my own personal 401k, and it's at a certain number right now, but I don't necessarily believe that it's going to be that number at a certain point. I think when things start collapsing or bubbles start bursting, you're going to see a rather large correction, and it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later.
The one of the great responses that a gentleman by the name of David Harsanyi responded in only a matter Twitter can. Inflation silver lining, your retirement funds will be worth nothing, but you will be paid more after being forced to go back to work.
Wow, that's cold.
It's cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice, right? But again, when you talk about the unanimity of purpose of the Republican and Democratic Party at any one given moment, it would appear to be that they are lockstep, arm in arm, goose-stepping their way into our financial demise. Did I say that? Yes, I did.
Yeah,
and I meant it. This wholesale. I often quote the cartoon Pogo, which came around in the late 19th century, and they talk about, I have seen the enemy and he is us. Has that ever been truer with regard to the financial prospects of this nation? These are completely self-inflicted gunshot wounds by the duopoly, aren't they?
They really are. And, when you think about these politicians who act like they hate each other, Bob Dole and the name of the Democrat escapes me right now. The guy I am very concerned. What was that guy's name? It's killing me. But anyway, Bob Dole, he retired from everything, and then this guy who was his sworn enemy in the Senate, he decides to retire. And Bob Dole gets this dude a job paying $6 million a year. And, and when you think about this, the old adage, these guys are fighting on the floor of Congress every day, and at night they're drinking in the bars together and laughing. Yeah. That sort of reminded me of how true that rang. And, when you say what you say, it always reminds me of that one little story of Bob Dole getting his sworn enemy a job paying $6 million a year.
Right, probably with Archer Daniels Midland, but you have to have a certain generation to remember that, because of course Bob Dole got his condo from Archer Daniels Midland. Let's talk one more issue before we get into shameless self-promotion. This has been a great conversation, by the way. Sometimes I'm focused on the candidacy, other times just waxing philosophical, but there's things that need to be said. They just absolutely need to be said, both here and in the campaign. Immigration, we are a nation right now that, in part because we are writing checks for people to stay home, and at the same time facing employment challenges, the likes of which we've never seen. And let's be blunt, there are a whole series of issues at stake here, not the least of which is if folks, when you have a transcendent issue like the Rona, like the pandemic, there are going to be radical changes in people's behavior. It was that important on more levels than we can even comprehend at this moment. But at the same time, we've got a nation where we've got an employment challenge, and that is getting employees. And at the same time, we are still mired in a 1960s immigration process that is, quite frankly, on a human rights level down to just a practical business level, ludicrous. What can we do about immigration to solve our incredibly enough, our employment problem? The employment problem, we don't have enough employees. And at the same time, be cognizant of fundamental human rights.
Well, you touched on a couple of things in there, and it's kind of difficult to unpack, but I'm going to try. So, when you talk about people are being paid to stay home, there's something really obscene about that. When people say, no, I don't want to get a job for $15 an hour because I'm making more with unemployment and stimulus checks than I would be working there. I'm just dumbfounded by that whole mindset. But when we talk about immigration and the way everything has been working, look, we have people who are in cages right now on the border. We have people who are in cages in prison for nonviolent drug offenses. We have people who are looking for employees to do jobs, to perform work. It would really be nice if we could come to some accommodation here. Give jobs to the people who want to work. And we kind of need to stop paying people to stay home. Part of the immigration issue that we have is the fact that we have this welfare state, and people do get concerned that, when people come across the border, they're going to take advantage of the welfare system in the United States. Well, there's a real simple way to fix that. And the welfare state. We talk about how much money we spend on the war on drugs. There's a simple answer for that. And the war on drugs. We have all these people who are being warehoused like cattle in prisons. And the war on drugs. That also is going to help us with at least the southern border immigration issue if we end the war on drugs, because, the battles that's going on with the drug trade, like in El Salvador, that's not really going to be going on too much if there's no profit motive for them to keep fighting. Consequently, El Salvador won't necessarily be quite so violent with blood running in the street all the time. These people won't be running away from where they live to come to the United States if their home is not a horrible place to be. Part of that is ending the war on drugs. There's a lot of U.S. policy that is just a disaster, like an epic failure, and we do need to stop it. We can stop it. And the solutions don't actually cost anything to implement. In fact, if anything, they're going to put more money into everything, or we can give the money back to the taxpayers where it belongs.
One of my favorite segments every week. Let's engage in some shameless self-promotion, and also let's talk about a very special event that is just a mere, about 2 months away, happening in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which will no longer be known just for the headquarters of the Little League, if you will, World Series, but more importantly, a libertarian epicenter, if you will, of America for those few days. But first, let's talk about how folks can support your campaign, and that means, yes, send money. Ed, we often talk about campaign techniques. Tonight, we're a little bit more philosophical than most nights, but it's important to raise money for campaigns. And call me Captain Obvious, but it's not so obvious because a lot of folks swear off, I don't need big money. Well, two things happen when you donate to a campaign. Number one, it facilitates, that extra trip across Pennsylvania to have petitions done. It facilitates door hangers. It facilitates AdWords purchases. It facilitates media buys, all of that. But it also creates a connection between those folks who have chosen in a time where finances are difficult for so many people, who've managed to, to squeeze out a little bit of extra, something, all right, to donate to your campaign, because it creates an emotional attachment, a sense of ownership. And that, folks, is why it's very important to raise money for all of the above. So where can folks donate to a Steve Scheetz campaign? And what are some of the things that you envision doing with individuals' investments in Steve Scheetz for Senate?
Well, Steve Scheetz for Senate is going to be using a lot of the campaign donations for literature, promoting libertarianism across the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to be using that money for ballot access work. I'm going to be using that money for traveling to help other candidates around the state. But mostly that's going to be done on my own dime. Whatever it is, I wouldn't be asking donors to donate to something that I'm not in all the way myself. I'm grateful for everything everybody wants to contribute, and I'm hoping that everybody contributes a lot. But like I said, I want to promote libertarianism. That's what my campaign is going to be all about. Right now, you can get me facebook.com, Scheetz for Senate. Scheetzforsenate.com. My website is not 100% up yet. It's going to be up shortly. I do have a bank account. I do have other stuff that's getting ready to be rolling. I'm going to be having that stuff posted on the Facebook link, and we will be linking up shortly. I'm hoping within the next week.
What type of advertising do you envision in a state like Pennsylvania? Has anyone ever even come up with the number of media markets there are in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? It just must be an enormous undertaking.
It's mind blowing how much in the way that goes. I couldn't even really be fair with any kind of number. I just know that there's a lot of media out there. A lot of it has to do with, as far as advertising goes. I think we had some success with billboards. We've had some success with direct mail. We've had success with, oh my God, give me 1 second. We're getting close. We're actually over time. That was expected to be done, but anyway, there's a lot of media out there, and we have to take advantage of all of it.
This got the potential to be a $1 billion campaign. We're talking about an open Senate seat in a battleground state that covers, again, you talk about Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. We're not even talking about Dubois. We're not even talking about Bethlehem. We're not even talking about, Easton, or we're not talking about, any of the northeastern vacation spots, if you will. Right. Is this going to be a $1 billion campaign?
I'm sure there's going to be at least $100 million spent by the duopoly for each candidate.
Mm-hmm.
As far as if we tickle $1 billion, it's going to be pretty intense. I don't know that we get that far, but it's going to be a lot.
There you go. What type of volunteer network are you going to have to put out there on the street?
As many as I can get. Look, right now I have a committee of, I guess, 25 people are involved right now, and a lot of us are working on just trying to get things up and running. We're just trying to build the infrastructure still, but we're really close to having that set up. And once we have the infrastructure set up, I'm going to be starting to roll a lot more frequently around the state, and starting to build the ground game, if you will. Right. We have some really great people in Pennsylvania. I'm going to give a shout out to my campaign manager, Bonnie Flaherty. She's from up in the Northeast. My graphics team is amazing. Uh, Michelle Marino Tiroli and Sam Robb out in Western Pennsylvania, along with um, Bridget and Aaron Rhinesmith. We have a really good team. I'm just naming a few people, but we have a really, really, really good team, and I'm really proud to be working with all of them. And if I don't mention his name, he's gonna complain. Joel Getz for mayor of East Stroudsburg.
Yep.
Good dude. A lot of these people are when I say they're working on so many different projects, it really brings in that whole adage. If you want something done, ask a busy person.
Right.
Everybody's freaking busy. So
No, absolutely. We're running out. I know we're long on time here. Liz Terwilliger is is organizing an event. We've talked about it a couple times during the show in Williamsport. If you could bring that a quick mention on that as well, because it's we're starting to get close to that.
Absolutely. No, I'm really excited about that. There's going to be. I'm sorry. There's people who are blowing up my phone right now. Sorry. I'm really excited to participate in that one. Perspectives on Liberty. We're going to be talking about all kinds of different things. I'm going to be sharing some libertarian solutions in that process, and hopefully some new stuff that people haven't heard before.
Excellent. Well, listen, Steve, we're going to close off with we're going to attempt to play a special moment, replay a special moment in libertarian history. Folks, if you haven't heard this before, it's worth listening, but, and we'll come back on the end to sign up. I know you probably got to go, Steve, no worries. But listen, the best of luck. I look forward to seeing people in Pennsylvania at the event. I can't wait. And folks, just go to the Libertarian Party, LPPA.org, I think it is, page, to find out more about that, to sign up. If you live in the Northeast, it's absolutely going to be worth the drive. My understanding is Spike's going to be there. It's going to be an all-star cast. It's tough in the Northeast. We don't get as many libertarian events as I think we should, but that's another conversation. So here's your opportunity to take advantage of a great one. Steve, listen, thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to stay in touch throughout the entire campaign. Please send us updates. We'll send cards and love. And if folks can stand by for a second, we're going to attempt to replay the great Mark Allen Feldman.
Hey, before you do that, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for bearing with me for the technical difficulties.
No, listen, what was that remark you made about busy people? Yeah. I think we've kind of gotten an approach down now tonight that I think we're going to be using a lot during the campaigns coming up, and we've got a long way to go before the campaigns, but they're going to be here before you know it. So folks, let's get into, have a nice summer for the next couple of weeks, but it's time to get ready to make war, to unleash the dogs of war upon a duopoly that deserves everything we're about to show it. All right, folks, stay tuned. Let's see if we can do this. John, take it away. Folks, you've been listening to Candidates Corner on LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Again, I want to thank John Gapso on the big board. I've had the unique privilege of being your host this evening. My name is Pat Ford. Folks, as always, I close on a thought. A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory. Live long and prosper. We'll see you next week.